Lesson 1. Lesson 1, 6th February 2022 AD. Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Prophet for the guidance of mankind. Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Prophet for the guidance of mankind. He was born in 571 AD and left this world departed in 634 AD. He was born in 571 AD and left this world departed in 634 AD, about a life of 63 years. A life of 63 years. I am ex-Brigadier Mustansir Billah. First, a brief introduction about my own self. I was educated at Sadiq Public School, Bahawalpur from 1955 to 1966. After O-level and FSC, joined the Pakistan Military Academy, Kakul in 1966. I was commissioned in the Punjab Regiment of Pakistan Army in 1968. Did Masters in Economics and Political Science in 1975 and 76 respectively. I am a graduate of the Command and Staff College, Quetta, and the Armed Forces War College, AFWC, and got a master's degree in strategic studies, in strategic studies in 1989. I commanded brigades in Sindh and Balochistan and served as Chief of Staff Corps. I was part of a military coup in 1995. Which was aimed to establish Khilafat in Pakistan. Was court-martialed, dismissed from service, and got 14 years rigorous imprisonment. We believe there is one Allah and no other God worthy of worship because we believe the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he told us so. We believe the Quran to be the word of Allah because the Prophet said so. We also believe in the accountability hereafter, for he told us so. Our entire religion rests on the word of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Muslims are required to love and respect the Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet, more than they respect their parents, more than they love their children and their own selves. The companions of the Prophet were prepared to die rather than Muhammad, peace be upon him, be given our pinprick. We follow him on the orders of Allah, for he was a walking Quran incarnate, the Quran in human shape, in human form, and because we know that only he would earn the pleasure of Allah who follows the Prophet in his beliefs, deeds, values, general appearance, habits, likes and dislikes, and in his nature. Infallibility, that is, no probability of making a mistake of the Prophet. Respecting and loving him are the foundations on which our faith in him and Allah are based. The Prophet said, even if Moses was to come in this world again, he'd have no choice but to follow my way, Riyazus Salihin. One of the major reasons that the non believers are non believers is the fact that they have certain hang ups, inhibitions, problems for which Muhammad, peace be upon him, doesn't appeal to their hearts and minds to be the true prophet of Allah. And they do not have faith in what he taught and preached. In fact, they aren't even prepared to listen to what he had to say with open minds. In fact, they aren't even prepared to listen to what he had to say with open minds. They haven't had the opportunity to study his life discursively. They haven't had the opportunity to study his life discursively, that is, based on argument and reason. And whatever little they know is mere heresy, suppositions, misinformation, based on an element of disliking engendered, that is produced by maligning, that is slandering, malodorous, foul writings of certain crazy people with objectionable motives. However, the main cause for the lack of knowledge and respect for the Prophet is the very conduct of the Muslims, the so called followers of the Prophet. They have failed in two ways. First, in having neglected to follow the epoch making, decisive sunnah of the Prophet, his perfect teachings, and his superhuman moral values, of which he was an infallible, that is, he was a model, he was an infallible model who couldn't make mistakes, that is, all his life. Second, in having failed to introduce him to the non believing world because the short sighted Muslims didn't consider it important enough to do so. A person who is not known and disrespected isn't even taken as a reformer. How do we expect Muhammad to be believed to be a prophet by the West? Prophet Ibrahim is the great grandfather, the common shared prophet of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Belief in prophethood of Moses, Musa, and Jesus, Isa, is integral to the faith of Islam. Belief in the prophethood of Moses, Musa, and Jesus, Isa, is integral to the faith of Islam. So is belief in Muhammad as the last and final prophet of Allah. Unfortunately, most of the non believers do not appreciate that the advent of Muhammad has been especially mentioned as Faklit in Torah and Ahmad in Bible. Unfortunately, I repeat, most of the non-believers do not appreciate that the advent of Muhammad has been especially mentioned, Faklit in Torah and Ahmad in Bible, along with his character traits and indicators, signs of recognizing him and recognizing him. So, which recognize him exists in both the worlds, so that both the books, so that the people do not go astray by disbelieving him. Had they known and listened to the voice of their soul and the Prophet without inhibitions, hang ups, and learnt about him, they'd have believed him to be that very last prophet mentioned in their scriptures. The Muslims must realize that not performing their duty, not following his sunnah, and not introducing the Prophet to the West forecloses doors of conversion to Islam and therefore means disaster for the mankind, which will miss the sway of freedom, fraternity, peace, equality, and justice in the world, the future global village. As such, it is the foremost duty of every Islamic scholar today to remove the mist surrounding the personality of Muhammad, peace be upon him, among the non believers, and to enable the mankind to see him with all his light and refulgence, brightness, for he was a prophet for the entire mankind for all times. I repeat, as such, it is the foremost duty of every Islamic scholar today to remove the myths surrounding the personality of Muhammad among the non-believers and to enable the mankind to see him with all his light and refulgence, brightness, for he was a prophet for the entire mankind for all times. That's all for today. Please pray for me. Next session tomorrow, that is on the 7th, will be of Quran, the elaboratory translation of Quran. And we'll come to session on Prophet Muhammad again day after tomorrow. Jazakallah khairan, ex-brigadier Mustansir Billah.